The insult. The Maritime Confederacy had existed for 12,000 years before humanity achieved faster-than-light travel. With over 67 species under their dominion and technological supremacy across 3 spiral arms, they had perfected the art of subjugation through diplomacy. When a new species reached for the stars, the Confederacy didn't conquer them with weapons. They conquered them with generosity. Counselor Zurak stood before the Confederacy's high chamber, his cephalopod-like appendages gesturing fluidly as he addressed the assembled representatives. These humans are problematic. Their technological advancement rate exceeds our models by 230%. Their resource consumption patterns suggest they will expand beyond their solar system within 15 years, not the 50 we initially projected. The Grand Arbiter, a massive entity shrouded in ceremonial garments that concealed most of its form, leaned forward. "And your solution, Counselor?" "The standard protocol, but accelerated. They've already begun reverse engineering technology from our commercial vessels. I propose we give them the Thalaction." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. The Thalaction was an ancient warship, once the pride of the Confederacy fleet, now decommissioned after suffering irreparable quantum fractures in its core. It was, in essence, a magnificent corpse, impressive to behold but fundamentally dead. A generous gift. The Arbiter nodded. "Let them waste their resources attempting to restore it. When they fail, they will understand their limitations and accept our terms of protection." The Council approved unanimously. Humanity would receive its first warship, a floating coffin designed to drain their economy and humble their ambitions. Captain Ilara Reeves had never been comfortable with authority, which made her promotion to command of humanity's first alien warship deliciously ironic. At 43, her career was a collection of brilliant successes, followed by spectacular insubordinations. She was, as her former commander put it, pathologically allergic to convention, which was exactly why she'd been chosen. "They're calling it the Thalaction," said Admiral Chen, sliding a data tablet across the table during the briefing. "The Confederacy claims it's a gesture of goodwill, recognition of humanity's rising status in galactic affairs." Ilara snorted. "And you believe that?" "Of course not. We think it's sabotage disguised as diplomacy. Intelligence suggests the ship is fundamentally compromised. Quantum fractures throughout its superstructure, radiation leaks in the propulsion system, weapons platforms gutted. It's designed to fail. So why accept it?" The Admiral smiled. "Because we want what they're not showing us." 2 weeks later, Ilara stood in the cavernous docking bay of Europa Station, staring up at the massive vessel that dwarfed everything humanity had ever built. The Thalaction was beautiful in the way a dead Leviathan might be, enormous, majestic, and lifeless. "What do you think, Captain?" asked Dr. Victor Santos, the lead xenotechnology specialist assigned to her team. "I think it's both a gift and an insult," she replied. "Let's find out what's really inside." Her hand-picked crew was unusual by military standards. 37 specialists chosen not for their discipline, but for their brilliance and unconventional thinking. People who, like her, had struggled to fit within hierarchies. Dr. Santos was a theoretical physicist whose theories on quantum entanglement were considered heretical even by his peers. Chief Engineer Amara Okafor had been expelled from 3 universities before revolutionizing fusion containment theory. Security Chief Malik Rahman was an ex-Special Forces operative discharged for excessive creativity in combat situations. They were brilliant misfits, and Ilara needed every one of them. "Initial scans confirm what we suspected," Santos reported after their first week aboard. "The quantum fractures in the core are extensive. By Confederate engineering standards, this ship is dead." "And by human standards?" Ilara asked. Santos grinned. "By human standards, it's an opportunity." What the Confederacy didn't understand, couldn't understand, was that humanity's relationship with technology was fundamentally different from their own. The Confederacy built on established principles, refinements of refinements spanning millennia. They saw broken technology as failed technology. Humans saw it as a starting point. They've been using quantum alignment technology all wrong, Okafor explained during the third month of their work. Her holographic models floated in the war room, displaying the ship's damaged core. They're treating quantum fractures as flaws to be repaired or contained. But what if they're actually gateways? Gateways to what? Malik asked, leaning forward. To the quantum substrate itself. Think about it. The reason these fractures can't be repaired is because they're not breaks in the physical sense. They're places where the boundary between normal space and quantum space has been compromised. Santos was already nodding, his eyes wide. If we could stabilize those boundaries instead of trying to close them, we could draw power directly from quantum fluctuations, Okafor finished. Unlimited energy without the need for traditional fuel sources. Ilara looked from one excited face to another. Can you make it work? Give us 6 months, Santos said. She gave them 4. The breakthrough came when they stopped trying to fix the ship according to Confederacy specifications and started reimagining it entirely. The quantum fractures that the aliens considered fatal flaws became the foundation of a revolutionary propulsion system. The radiation leaks were channeled through newly designed conduits to power weapons systems, unlike anything the galaxy had seen. We're ready for the first test, Okafor reported, her usually stoic face betraying excitement. The test was conducted in the asteroid belt, far from prying eyes. When the refitted Thalaxion, now rechristened the Phoenix, engaged its new drive system, it didn't just move. It phased, partially existing in quantum space while maintaining presence in normal space. Power output exceeding projections by 340%, Santos reported, his voice steady despite the ship around them humming with energy that by all rights shouldn't exist. Ilara ordered a weapons test on a designated asteroid. What was supposed to be a controlled energy discharge became something else entirely. The asteroid didn't explode, it unraveled, its atomic structure disintegrating as quantum forces redistributed its very essence. Silence fell over the bridge. Did we just? Malik finally spoke. Convert matter directly into energy, and then harness that energy, Santos whispered. The implications are significant, Ilara finished, a slow smile spreading across her face. Very significant indeed. News of their progress reached the Confederacy through carefully controlled channels. Humanity reported challenges with the gift vessel, humbly requested technical assistance, and generally played the role of struggling primitives. Meanwhile, in the shadows of the asteroid belt, the Phoenix underwent transformation after transformation. The Confederacy has scheduled an inspection, Admiral Chen informed Ilara during a secured transmission. They want to see how we're handling their generous gift. Perfect timing, Ilara replied. We've just finished making it presentable. The Confederacy delegation arrived expecting to find humans struggling with technology beyond their comprehension. What they found instead was a perfectly restored vessel that appeared to function exactly as the original Thalaxion had, because that's precisely what Ilara wanted them to see. The true Phoenix remained hidden beneath carefully constructed illusions and temporary modifications. The delegation departed satisfied that humanity was progressing at an acceptable pace, impressive for primitives, but still well within controllable parameters. As their ships disappeared into hyperspace, Ilara turned to her crew. Phase 2 begins now. Let's show the galaxy what happens when you underestimate humanity. The Reckoning. The Meridian Confederacy had spent millennia perfecting the art of superiority. Their dominance wasn't simply technological or military. It was psychological. Species across the galaxy had been conditioned to view the Confederacy as inherently, inevitably superior. This perception was their greatest weapon, more powerful than any fleet. So when reports began circulating about unusual activity in the human sector, the initial response wasn't concern, it was amusement. They've managed basic repairs on the Thalaxion, Counselor Zirax reported to the High Chamber 6 months after the inspection. Quite impressive for their technological level, though they've had to drastically simplify its systems. Our estimation is that they've achieved perhaps 15% of its original capabilities. And the quantum fractures? Asked the Grand Arbiter. Still present. Their attempts to contain the radiation have been creative, if inadequate. They've lost 17 technicians to exposure. This news was received with the equivalent of satisfied nods. Everything was proceeding according to the established pattern. The new species struggles, realizes its limitations, and gradually accepts Confederacy guidance. What no one in the high chamber knew was that the 17 lost technicians were actually alive and well, working in a classified facility on Mars developing applications for the quantum technology they'd discovered. The radiation exposure reports were fabricated, part of an elaborate deception orchestrated by Captain Ilara Reeves and Earth's unified government. The Phoenix, meanwhile, was undergoing its final modifications in a hidden shipyard constructed within a hollowed-out asteroid. The quantum sensor grid is online, Santos reported during the final systems check. We're detecting Confederate patrols at 5 times the range of their own sensor capabilities. Ilara nodded, studying the tactical display where tiny lights represented the movements of alien vessels throughout the sector. And they can't detect us. The quantum phase harmonizers are functioning perfectly, Okafor confirmed. To conventional sensors, we're just background radiation, if they detect us at all. Weapons systems. Malik stepped forward. The matter-energy convergent cannons are operational. We've modified the targeting systems to allow for precision control of the effect radius. We can disintegrate anything from a single bolt to an entire capital ship, or just disable specific systems while leaving the rest intact. Ilara studied her crew, humans who had taken an alien coffin and transformed it into something the galaxy had never seen. The Confederacy gave us this ship expecting us to fail, to learn our place. I think it's time we showed them where that place actually is. The opportunity came sooner than expected. A dispute between the Confederacy and the independent Thraxian Alliance over mining rights in the Hephaestus Belt escalated to military posturing. The Thraxians, a reptilian species known for their engineering prowess but limited military capability, faced 3 Confederate battlecruisers. The sector was only 2 days' journey from Earth space. It's perfect, Admiral Chen said during the emergency council meeting. The Thraxians have been friendly to human interests, and the Confederacy has been pressuring them to restrict their trade with us. If we intervene, we reveal our capabilities, someone objected. We reveal exactly what we choose to reveal, Ilara countered. And we position humanity as a force in galactic politics. The decision was made. The Phoenix would intercept the Confederate fleet before they could engage the Thraxians, not as a direct confrontation, but as a peacekeeping third party, at least initially. When the Phoenix arrived in the Hephaestus Belt, the Confederate vessels had already established a blockade around the primary Thraxian mining facility. Their communication to the human vessel was predictably condescending. Human vessel, this is Confederate Commander Drax. This matter does not concern Earth. Return to your territory immediately. Ilara, seated in the command chair of a bridge that had been entirely redesigned from its original configuration, smiled at the reptilian face on the view screen. Confederate Commander, this is Captain Ilara Reeves of the Earth vessel Phoenix. We're here to offer mediation services in this dispute. The Confederate commander's facial appendages twitched in what humans had learned was their expression of contempt. The Confederacy does not require human mediation. This is your final warning to depart. I understand, Ilara replied cordially. However, before we leave, perhaps you'd be interested in a demonstration of what humanity has been working on, a gesture of transparency between allies. Before the commander could respond, Ilara nodded to Malik. The Phoenix's quantum phase drive engaged, and to the Confederate sensors, the human vessel simply vanished. What? The commander began, before the transmission cut off. The Phoenix reappeared directly between the Confederate fleet and the Thraxian facility, having traversed the distance instantaneously by partially shifting into quantum space. Confederate vessels, Ilara broadcast. What you just witnessed was a quantum phase jump, technology developed by humanity based on principles we discovered while working with your generous gift. Allow us to demonstrate another application. She nodded again, and Malik targeted a large asteroid nearby. The matter-energy conversion cannon fired. Not a beam of energy, but a subtle distortion in space itself. The asteroid didn't explode. It simply ceased to exist, converted entirely to energy that the Phoenix absorbed and redistributed through its systems. Silence hung in space for 30 seconds before the Confederate commander's transmission resumed. His facial appendages were completely still, a sign of shock in their species. That's impossible, he stated. Our scientists have determined quantum fracture technology cannot be stabilized. Your scientists were working with certain assumptions that we didn't share, Ilara replied. Now about this blockade. The Thraxians have been fair trading partners with Earth. We would consider it a personal favor if you would withdraw your vessels and address this matter through diplomatic channels. The implied threat hung in space between them. The Confederate commander, faced with technology that defied his understanding, and the sudden realization that his vessels might be as easily erased as that asteroid, made the only rational choice. We will consider Earth's position. The blockade will be lifted pending further discussion. As the Confederate vessels retreated, transmissions began flying across subspace channels throughout the sector. Humanity had arrived on the galactic stage not as supplicants, but as innovators who had taken a discarded weapon and transformed it into something that challenged the very foundations of Confederate technological supremacy. In the high chamber of the Confederacy, the mood shifted from confusion to alarm as reports filtered in. Impossible, Counselor Xerax insisted. They cannot have stabilized quantum fracture technology. Our scientists have tried for centuries. And yet, the Grand Arbiter replied coldly, the evidence suggests they have done exactly that. The question now is not whether they've done it, but what else they might have discovered while we were underestimating them. The answer came 3 weeks later when a formal diplomatic delegation from Earth arrived at the Confederate capital world, transported aboard the Phoenix. The ship that had been gifted as a subtle insult now hovered above the seat of Confederate power, a gleaming testament to human ingenuity. Captain Ilara Reeves led the delegation, walking confidently into the high chamber where she had once been expected to grovel with gratitude for their generosity. On behalf of Earth, I thank you for receiving us, she began, her voice carrying through the vast chamber, and for the gift of the vessel formerly known as the Thalaxian. It has been instructive. We are pleased that humans have found use for our offering. The Grand Arbiter responded carefully. Though we are curious about the modifications you've made. Ilara smiled. Necessity is the mother of invention, Grand Arbiter. When faced with technology that doesn't work as intended, humans don't simply discard it. We reimagine it. The quantum fractures you considered fatal flaws. We saw them as doorways to a new understanding of physics. She activated a small device on her wrist, projecting schematics into the air. Just enough information to verify what the Confederacy already feared, but not enough to replicate. The Phoenix represents not just a restored warship, but a new paradigm in energy production, propulsion, and matter manipulation. Technology that Earth is prepared to share with peaceful trading partners across the galaxy. The implication was clear. The Confederacy's technological monopoly was broken. Their carefully constructed hierarchy was about to be disrupted. The Confederacy has always valued innovation, the Grand Arbiter stated, attempting to maintain dignity in the face of this paradigm shift. Perhaps our species have more to learn from each other than we initially assessed. Perhaps, Ilara agreed. Though I would offer one observation, if I may. The Grand Arbiter gestured permission, appendages moving stiffly. In your long history, you've perfected the art of appearing superior. You gave us a floating coffin, expecting us to pour resources into a doomed effort. Instead, we transformed it into something beyond your imagination. She paused, letting her words settle over the assembly. That is the human way. We don't accept limitations, we overcome them. We don't follow paths. We forge new ones. Remember this the next time you attempt to calculate what humanity is capable of. As she turned to leave, Ilara added one final thought that would echo through Confederate politics for decades to come. You gave us a coffin meant to bury our ambitions. Instead, we used it to bury assumptions about what's possible. Thank you for the opportunity to demonstrate that the laws of physics, like the hierarchies of power, are more flexible than they appear. In the years that followed, the balance of power in the galaxy shifted. The Confederacy, forced to adapt to a new reality where their technological supremacy was no longer assured, entered a period of internal reformation. Other species, inspired by humanity's example, began questioning traditional limitations. And the Phoenix, the ship gifted as an insult and transformed into a revolution, became a symbol throughout the stars, a reminder that one civilization's discard can become another's foundation for greatness. When asked later how humans had accomplished what Confederate scientists had deemed impossible, Ilara's answer became legendary. You saw a broken ship. We saw pieces of a puzzle waiting to be arranged in a new pattern. The difference isn't in our technologies. It's in our imaginations.